Lesson, Mount Rainier, Science Standards, K10, K11, 1.5, 1.7, 1.8, 2.5, 2.7, 2.8, 3.6, 3.8, 4.3, 5.8, 6.6, 6.9, LS5, LS9, ES5, ES8, Bio 8. Click to continue.
Okay. In the past, we've talked a lot about volcanoes and how they function, but we really haven't focused a lot on specific volcanoes. I know when I was a child, when I thought of volcanoes, I often thought of the state of Hawaii because they have volcanoes that are erupting there every few years. And I would see photos as well as news coverage of lava flows and things like that. As I got older, I realized that volcanoes are actually much more abundant throughout the world than I thought. And actually, a lot of people live near volcanoes. Now, going back to my Hawaii example, I often thought, okay, as pretty as Hawaii is, why would you live somewhere where your house could be burned up by a lava flow? It just did not make sense to me why anyone would want to live near a volcano that could erupt at any moment and destroy everything. Well, once again, come to find out, lots and lots of people live near volcanoes. The thing is that many of those volcanoes don't necessarily seem dangerous. In fact, many of them you might not even realize are volcanoes because they haven't erupted in years and years and years. And one of the most famous volcanoes in the United States, at least, is Mount Rainier, also known as Mount Tacoma by some Native American tribes. And what makes it famous is not its eruptions. What makes it famous is just its beauty. It's a very picturesque mountain. It's one of the tallest mountains in the contiguous 48 states, the lower 48 states. It's got a real nice shape where it stands out against the surrounding mountain range. You can see it from several cities, including Seattle, Washington. It is located in Washington. And it's just full of beauty in a lot of other ways, which we're going to explore in this book. So this book is going to show why sometimes it's just so hard for people to get away from volcanoes. Now, before we go further, like I said, it hasn't erupted in a long time, but it is still considered active by scientists. Now, the rule of thumb is that if it's erupted within the past 10,000 years, it's still active because volcanoes can go thousands of years between eruptions. In fact, some volcanoes go hundreds of thousands of years between eruptions, and there are volcanoes that have been thought to be extinct because they haven't erupted in such a long time that still actually end up erupting in modern times. So Mount Rainier, its most recent known eruptions were back in the 1800s, and I don't know a lot about those eruptions. I don't think they were particularly huge. Otherwise, we might not have as many cities near it as we do currently. But they are afraid if Mount Rainier does erupt, that it could wipe out surrounding communities, communities with as many as 100,000 people. So it could impact the lives of as many as 100,000 people. And that's directly through things like flooding and that. I mean, if you look at ash clouds and weather impacts, it actually impact more people. But in the nearby region, they're afraid that it could easily impact as many as 100,000 people just with flooding that it causes. So interesting story. Like I said, lots of people living near Mount Rainier, even though scientists think it could actually erupt at any moment. but there hasn't been a lot of evidence of it of any eruptions forthcoming. Normally, you see things like earthquakes when a volcano is getting ready to erupt, but they haven't really seen any indications that it might erupt soon. So for now, people feel it's largely safe, even though they know for a fact that it's got magma chambers underneath it where there's currently hot molten rock, which they actually will kind of reference in this book. Okay, well, let's get started and learn more about Mount Rainier. So this says, discover America's national parks in pictures. Mount Rainier, the continuing story.
Click to continue.
Got some beautiful pictures here. I'll give you a minute just to take them in. All right. From the first moment of Mount Rainier's fiery origin, water began its assault and its caress, sculpting the mass of rock. As glaciers, water plucks and gouges rocks from the mountainside. As floods, it rapidly rearranges large quantities of material. Actually, I'm going to start this over. Let me center this. From the first moment of Mount Rainier's fiery origin, water began its assault and its caress, sculpting the mass of rock. As glaciers, water plucks and gouges rock from the mountainside. As floods, it rapidly rearranges large quantities of material. As streams, it methodically tumbles and wears down rock. Then, while it nurtures life on the mountain's flanks, its quiet ponds reflect the beauty of its work.
Click to continue.
When fiery lava erupts through the Earth's crust, a volcano is born. More eruptions add layers of ash and lava, devastating the surface as they build the mountain. Mount Rainier, a stratovolcano several 100,000 years old, wears a fragile mantle of snow, forest, and beauty.
Click to continue.
All right, those other pages were largely introduction. We are just now getting to the title page. Let me go ahead and read the caption here. Mount Rainier National Park, located in southwestern Washington, established in 1899, preserves the greatest single peak glacial system in the contiguous United States. In pictures, Mount Rainier, the continuing story, by William Dangler. William Dangler was hired by the National Park Service as a seasonal interpreter at Grand Canyon in 1963 after completing study for his Master of Science degree in wildlife biology at Arizona State University. Bill has managed interpretive programs in 3 parks since 1970 and became chief of interpretation at Mount Rainier in 1981.
Click to continue.
National park areas are special landscapes set aside by acts of Congress to protect and preserve features of national significance that are generally categorized as scenic, scientific, historical, and recreational. As Americans, we are joint caretakers of these unique places, and we gladly share them with visitors from around the world. Mount Rainier was proclaimed the nation's 5th national park on March 2nd, 1899. At first, its proponents' attention was drawn to the upper mountain that dominated the horizon as an Arctic island in a temperate zone. Fortunately, their interest broadened to encompass the contiguous slopes of alpine, subalpine, and old-growth forest habitats so valued a century later. Mount Rainier is a symbol of the Northwest. It is cherished as a local barometer. If the mountain is visible from Seattle or Tacoma, it must be a good day. Picture caption: 12 climbers heed John Muir. Let me try that. Muir? Okay. 12 climbers heed John Muir's admonition to climb the mountains and get their good tidings as they pass jagged andesite rocks approaching the summit. Do you see the climbers?
Click to continue.
The mountain as a place to be. Although Mount Rainier displays the distinct qualities of 4 seasons, 3 of them are compressed into 5 or 6 months. Winter dominates the year, providing abundant opportunity for cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and winter camping. Spring, summer, and fall bring a sense of urgency to enjoy them quickly during the brief respite from winter. The short spring is evident primarily in the low elevation forest, but late July and August attract the most people to the mountain. Then, lavish wildflower displays spread across the subalpine and alpine slopes. These prime summer days are the ones most likely to be sunny, and in years when snowfall has been heavy, the trails may have just melted out. The park's well-constructed road system provides an intimate encounter with the old-growth forest and vistas that hint at the mountain's immense size. Perhaps it's this feeling of immensity, this need to get closer, that draws people from their cars onto the trails, if only for a short walk. Many of them accept the challenge to explore higher, to prowl the trails through the subalpine meadows above the popular developed areas of Paradise and Sunrise. Others don backpacks, accepting the arduous challenge of the backcountry. Here, they can immerse themselves in the mountain's solitude, returning physically weary and spiritually enriched. A few go for the summit. Northwesterners feel a sense of pride in their park. They make frequent and good use of its recreational opportunities. In fact, people from Washington State account for over half of the park's 2 million visitors per year. Let's look at this picture first. Winter is never far away on Mount Rainier. Snow has been known to fall at Paradise every month of the year. These enthusiasts carry their skis through the lush meadows of late summer in anticipation of a run down the Muir snowfield, a permanent expanse of snow near Camp Muir. Now this picture. There are many places to be at. Mount Rainier, to be physically and to be mentally. Let me start this over. There are many places to be at Mount Rainier, to be physically and to be mentally. These hikers are physically on Burroughs Mountain, but mentally they might also be on Emmons Glacier, on Little Tahoma Peak, or wherever their thoughts take them as they gaze on the distant view of rock and ice.
Click to continue.
Let's look up here first. Although the compressed seasons of spring, summer, and fall are favored by most people, Mount Rainier seems at its best in winter. Snow rounds the ragged ridges of weathering rock, protects fragile vegetation, and engulfs buildings on the subalpine slopes. The need to stay on trails gives way to the freedom of cross-country skis and snowshoes. A clear, sparkling winter day at Paradise is hard to beat. Let's look at this picture. Mountain goats epitomize winter. White all year, they never stray far from snowline. They migrate vertically, summering above timberline and wintering in the upper forest. Up here it says wintering. This picture. Snowshoes provide an inexpensive, easy-to-learn way for people to explore the wonders of winter. The snow's surface usually reveals evidence of animal activity in what first appears to be an uninhabited white stillness. Park naturalists lead snowshoe walks at Paradise on winter weekends. What will they discover today? The Henry M. Jackson Memorial Visitor Center at Paradise provides a variety of services daily from May to October and on winter weekends.
Click to continue.
All right. Up here. This is the Alpine zone, so I'm assuming a lot of this takes place in the Alpine part of the mountain. This picture. Next to plants, birds are the most evident forms of life on the mountain. The park checklist records about 150 species. Some, like Clark's nutcracker, have adapted to year-round mountain life, while others migrate either between higher and lower elevations or to distant locations. Look at this one next. The delicate Lyell's rock cress inhabits rocky ridges and talus slopes in the harsh alpine habitat. Like other alpine plants, this member of the mustard family maintains a low profile for protection against wind-blown fragments of rock and ice. Between the forest upper limit and the lower edge of permanent ice and snow lies the alpine zone, an area characterized by sparse soil and frequent wind. The heath's small evergreen leaves, low stature, and extensive root systems adapt them well to alpine conditions. We see fragile ancient beauty in the slow-growing heaths. Were it destroyed, this clump of white heather would not grow back in our lifetime. Perhaps small wonders such as this checker spot butterfly are most appreciated when the distant mountain grandeur is obscured from view. The elephant's head's unique... let me rephrase that or start over. The elephant head's unique flowers are adapted to encourage pollination by bees. Now this picture. Lupines contribute beauty to the subalpine slopes and much needed nitrogen to the poor quality soil in which they grow.
Click to continue.
Animals at Mount Rainier. The countless kinds of plants and animals that call Mount Rainier home have adapted in fascinating ways to the mountain's demanding habitats. Many, such as warblers and monarch butterflies, spend summer on the mountain and migrate vast distances to escape its winter. Some follow the example of the elk and migrate vertically between the high country and the lowlands in response to changing seasons. Others, like the marmots and ground squirrels, survive the harsh winters by hibernating for long months. The very hardy, from white-tailed ptarmigans to diminutive mice, defy the elements, remaining active throughout the year. The hoary marmot spends 2/3 of its year in hibernation. It devotes the remaining third to building fat for the next hibernation, almost doubling its weight in 4 months. People who want to blend into their environment wear camouflage clothing. Camouflage is a fawn's birthright. For protection during its first weeks, white spots on the tan body combine with an innate ability to remain motionless. The fawn soon gains strength and stability to move safely about the forest. Here, a dusting of late snow enhances the camouflage's effectiveness. Color in black bears varies from black to tan and appears linked to genetics. The tan variation is more common in the West and seems the more prevalent color at Mount Rainier. In black bears, hibernation is characterized by an extreme drop in heart rate and a reduction in metabolism, but little change in body temperature. Although black bears undergo extended periods of inactivity, they may arouse several times during the winter. Animals classified as true hibernators cannot be aroused even if they are handled. At Mount Rainier, black bears hibernate from about November through April. The pine marten is a predator active year-round, swift enough to catch squirrels in trees and clever enough to catch mice tunneling through snow. This weasel relative makes itself at home wherever there are trees. Winter visitors delight in finding its unique 2x2 tracks stitched across the snow.
Click to continue.
The other side of the mountain. Over here. Avalanches are usually associated with winter, but summer brings equal or greater hazards to the high mountain adventure. Chunks of massive ice cliffs break off ridges as the summer sun reduces the binding quality of ice. Frequently, these ice falls are heard as the momentary sound of a jet plane or distant thunder, long after the visual evidence is gone. This hiker is treated to a spectacular avalanche down the mile-high face of Willis Wall onto Carbon Glacier. So the ice started up here and fell down to here, and you can see where it's fallen before it's all broken up. And that's just dust and snow that's been poofed up from all the commotion. Park rangers who work the north side of the mountain frequently express their annoyance at the constant attention given the south side. They have a good point. Mount Rainier's north side features a rugged face of rock and ice called Willis Wall. At its base, twin cirques, I think that's how you say that word, twin cirques, spawn Carbon Glacier. The ridge between these cirques reveals a layering of rock typical of a stratovolcano. The Liberty Ridge climbing route on Willis Wall is one of the most treacherous on the mountain. So you can actually see, if you look very closely, it might be hard to see in the video, little lines crossing the face of these cliffs. And those are the different layers that built up the stratovolcano over the years. Layers of lava that cooled to become igneous rock, and layers of ash.
Click to continue.
Fallen trees account for substantial accumulations of mass and nutrients in old-growth forest ecosystems. Nitrogen, for example, accumulates in the decaying fallen trees of old growth, Douglas fir forest, in equal amounts as is found beneath the soil surface. Fallen trees support seedlings and harbor myriad organisms. Much of the low-elevation old-growth forest in Mount Rainier National Park has the appearance of rainforest. But Sitka spruce, a notable component of temperate rainforest, is found only in one small area at Carbon River entrance. Here, it grows with gigantic Douglas fir and western hemlock in the park's only true rainforest. So remember, a rainforest has to get a very large amount of water every year in order to be considered a rainforest. The most famous rainforests are typically in the tropical regions of the world, but there are temperate rainforests in the cooler portions of the world, the temperate portions. They just need a lot of rain to be considered a temperate rainforest. Forest 2. The slender subalpine fir is well shaped to cope with extreme depths of snowfall. It dominates the forest near tree line. Dense growth gives way to clusters of trees along the forest upper limit in the meadows above Paradise. Harsh weather at tree line often contorts the trees into the shape of shrubs called Krummholz, a German word meaning crooked wood. I do see some of these trees down here seem to have bent trunks. This one seems to have a bent trunk as well. Krummholz. And there's something bright pink right here. I just think that might be an error on the photograph.
Click to continue.
and early snowfall offers a gentle transition between the green and brown of summer and the dense, heavy snowpack of winter. New snow gives a welcome, fresh appearance to the mountain. Let's look over here. Subtle changes in climate shrink or expand the nearly 4-mile-long Nisqually Glacier. To imagine its former volume, fill the valley foreground with ice to the moraine's sharp edge well above the current rock-covered terminus. What's your guess about future trends? So they're saying this glacier here, which is miles long, has come all the way down here and filled all the way up to this edge. But right now it has melted back. And glaciers can grow and shrink from year to year, as well as through the decades, because there's trends over years and hundreds of years where you might get a very warm decade or a very warm century where it melts back a fair bit, or you might have a very cold decade or a very cold century where it grows. Okay? Currently, due to global warming, there's a lot of glaciers around the world that have shrunk all the way back and completely disappeared because it just doesn't get cold enough anymore in the winter to form more ice pack, snow and ice pack. But of course, then you have periods like the ice ages where it's cold for thousands of years, and these glaciers get so big they take over the whole mountain and go down into the valleys and the surrounding plains even, depending on the part of the world. Oh, I forgot to read this. Let's read this. Weather, and lots of it. Mount Rainier makes its own weather, jutting some 7,000 feet above the crest of the Cascade Range. The mountain interrupts the prevailing onshore flow of moist air coming off the Pacific Ocean 100 miles to the west. Clouds build and bring abundant precipitation to the south and west sides. The north and east sides in the mountain's rain shadow receive considerably less moisture. Paradise, at 5,400 feet elevation on the south side, happens to lie in an optimum location for attracting vast quantities of snow, over 600 inches during an average year, with up to 3 feet falling in 24 hours. A world record 1,122 inches fell during the 1971 to 1972, or just during 1971 to 1972. Depths in excess of 30 feet may accumulate on the ground. Although less snow may fall on the upper mountain, the colder temperatures of the high elevations allow it to remain longer and compress into glacial ice. And that's what we're looking at over here and up here.
Click to continue.
The flow of rock and ice. A glacier flowing down the mountain picks up rock in several ways. As the glacier moves, it plucks rock from its bed. Other rock falls onto its surface from adjacent cliffs and moraines. Rocks carried within the ice abrade bedrock like a gigantic rasp, scouring off powdered rock called glacial flour. Suspended glacial flour makes the glacier's meltwater look turbid. So this is meltwater coming from this glacier, and it looks kind of brownish. And that's from the rock flour, scraped rocks that have been scraped into like essentially dirt, you know, and sand or clay or whatnot that mix with the water and make it muddy as it flows. And these are all rocks. Notice how there's a bunch of different types of rocks here. They're not all the same color. It's because they've come from different parts of the mountain. And they've all been carried by the glacier and have mixed together. So you get a whole variety of rock colors. In the summer of 1989, clouds obscured a seismic event on the northeast side. Several days later, the clouds lifted, revealing a large slab of Russell Cliff collapsed onto Winthrop Glacier. So I guess this is part of the cliff that collapsed onto the glacier. So now that glacier is going to carry it, and it could end up in a rock stream like this as it melts. Let's look at this picture. Cracks form when molten rock cools, hardens, and contracts. 3 or more cracks will radiate from one center. Cracks running from many such centers meet with others, forming columns with 3 to 8 sides. So 3 or more cracks will radiate. So this is what we got here. This was lava that cooled into igneous rock, and as it cooled, it formed little cracks. Those cracks met and created these, I think the term is columnar joints, because they look like columns. Overleaf. So that's referring to what we're about to turn to. Overleaf. Reflection lakes are a special location. Much photographed, frequently pleasant, always enjoyed. Photo by Jeff Nass. So let's look at this photo of a reflection lake.
Click to continue.
Thank you very much for participating in this lesson. Have a great day.